introduce to you, I'd like to introduce to you Dr. Marla Davis, and she's going to do our welcome this morning.
Good morning. Thank you so very much, Dr. Johnson. It's a pleasure to be with each of you today. I bring you greetings from the Mississippi Department of Education. I'm Marla Davis, the Associate State Superintendent here in the Academic Education Office. And we'd like to tell you, thank you again for your flexibility. We understand that many of you may not have been able to join us on last week, but we appreciate you all joining us today as we continue forging forward with our work around high quality instructional materials and our partnership with Rivet. Thank you so much for allowing us to meet with you. And I'm going to turn it back over to Lee Johnson, our Executive Director for Professional Development and our partners at Rivet Education.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. We really appreciate your support. And good morning, everyone. Welcome to session 1 of our Supporting High Quality Instructional Materials Learning Series. I'm Lee Johnson, and I will be your facilitator today. And I'm the Bureau Director here at the MDE for Professional Development, Professional Learning, and Innovative Programs. During this learning series, over the next 3 weeks, we're going to discuss the role that high quality instructional materials play in helping us to achieve our state's academic vision for students, the type of professional learning that school leaders and teachers need and deserve to skillfully use these materials in classrooms, and how you, as local professional learning providers in Mississippi, can support these efforts. Before we get started, I want to address a few housekeeping rules. Please keep your phone or computer on mute at all times. If you have questions, please enter them into the chat box and we will pause periodically to address them. We may not get to everyone's questions today, and therefore you can follow up with us at the email we'll provide at the end of the call today. So for our first session today, we're going to focus on defining what HQIM, high quality instructional materials, are in Mississippi, how the implementation of HQIM impacts a broader set of goals for students and teachers, and what we are doing as a state agency to ensure that all students have access to HQIM, and how you can support the schools and districts in this important work. So here's just a quick look at our agenda. As you can see, we have 4 things that we're going to be talking about today. The academic vision of the Mississippi Department of Education is to create a world-class educational system that gives students the knowledge and skills to be successful in college, in the workforce, and to flourish as parents and citizens. To make this vision a reality, all students must be given multiple pathways to success, and teachers and administrators must continue to meet the challenges of this ever-changing landscape of public education. While Mississippi has made solid strides in achieving its mission and vision, too many students are still leaving our schools not prepared with the knowledge and skills that they need to be successful in college or a career. One of the primary reasons that students are not leaving our schools prepared is that they are not given regularly meaningful work assignments. These are assignments that are rigorous and on grade level. This was even more true amidst the pandemic, when students were learning in remote settings, and where a lot of them have gone back to now. But this isn't just a Mississippi problem. In 2018, TNTP examined the quality of students' academic experiences in school and its effect on their long-term success. The resulting report, The Opportunity Myth, which we shared with you in the pre-reading, brought to life a glaring problem in this country. On average, students spend 581 of 720 hours each year on assignments that are not high quality and not on grade level. despite the fact that the majority of students studied by TNTP aspired to careers that required at least 1 year of college and are making A's and B's on their assignments, those assignments are not rigorous enough to actually prepare them for college level work. However, teachers are not to blame for students' lack of access to meaningful grade level instruction every day. Until recently, high quality standards aligned instructional materials just did not exist in a mass form. Lacking the HQIM materials, teachers spend up to 7 to 12 hours a week sifting through low quality instructional materials on the internet. Think Teachers Pay Teachers and Pinterest, or trying to create their own for their students. This leads to an inconsistency in the quality of instruction happening across classrooms, often impacting low and students of color the most. In fact, this deep-rooted artisan belief that the best materials are those created by teachers is one that is unique to the teaching profession. No one expects their doctor to make the medicine that they prescribe to their patients, or carpenters to begin their day in the forest cutting down trees rather than the lumberyard. So why do we expect teachers to create their own lessons from scratch every week? When teachers have to pull resources together on their own, they often have little means of knowing if what they found online will meet the state standard and actually teach their students the needed grade level skills and knowledge. Now, does this ring true for the districts you work with? What have you seen and experienced? Would you please drop a few interesting tidbits into the chat for us? Absolutely, Julie, you are right. They really like Teacher Pay Teacher. And some are good resources, but you don't really know. And I would say Teacher Pay Teacher in general is probably strongly slanted towards Common Core rather than our Mississippi state standards. Science especially, because we only think about it 3 grade levels, right? So what do we do to fix it? How do we ensure that all students have access to meaningful grade level work every day? To do this, school systems and schools need to invest in solutions that are most likely to impact the quality of instruction, particularly Tier 1 instruction, right? We have a lot of resources for Tier 2 and 3, but Tier 1 seems to be the most lacking. So in 2018, we decided to try to address some of this. And when we updated our strategic goals, we wanted to achieve that academic vision and ultimately improve educational opportunities for all students. We believe that high quality instructional materials are one of the main change levers that districts can pull to achieve these goals, to achieve all students proficient and showing growth, to ensure that every student graduates and every child has access to high quality instructional materials, to help have every school with effective teachers and leaders, that every community has data that they can use to help improve their school, and ultimately get every school and district rated a C or higher. Well, what exactly are HQIM? Let's start by first defining what instructional materials are generally. So instructional materials provide a roadmap for teachers on how to plan, teach, and assess student learning. They include teaching materials such as lesson plans, embedded assessments, formative and summative assessments. It may be videos, it may be labs, and student materials, their book, maybe it's an electronic book, their assignments, maybe they have some online resources as well. But how do you know when you get all this stuff if it's high quality? To be considered in Mississippi as high quality, this is our definition, and I'm going to read this slide to you. I know you can read it, but I'm going to read it to you. Are fully aligned to the Mississippi College and Career Readiness Standards and vision for what students should know and be able to do at the end of each school year. Must include a full year's worth of teacher and student materials that support student mastery of grade level content. And these adopted materials are on the Mississippi Instructional Materials Matter website, indicating that the materials reflect evidence-based research on good instruction. So, in a historical attempt to counteract the impact of COVID-19, Congress is funneling billions of dollars into states and school systems to improve the overall quality of instruction happening in classrooms, while continuing to keep students and educators and parents and communities safe. Research shows that providing teachers with high quality instructional materials and aligned professional learning can positively impact teacher practice and student outcomes. We are recommending that school systems use these funds to invest in high quality instructional materials and the professional learning needed to help teachers skillfully use and adapt these materials well. So let's just take a moment to reflect on the current state of instructional materials within the schools and the teachers you support. Take a moment to reflect on these three questions. So in the schools that you work with, do they meet this definition of high quality, the materials they're using? If yes, what's been the impact? And if no, what is the possible impact? So take a couple of minutes and put your answers in the chat to these questions, and maybe comment on what you see some other people share in the chat. I just want to share, I was a high school math teacher and I have great wait time. And I think you're all correct where you're saying most of them are in their first year of adoption or maybe their second year. So it is going to take us some time to really see. But I do like your idea that they're understanding more deeply what's going on, especially around reading skills. You know, we've been working on reading for a long time and we have a real good foundation in the science, But as we get new teachers, we've got to bring them all on as well. So Kelly, what would make it, what would fix that problem of it depends on what resource is and how the school is using it. Some are really good resources, but are not used effectively. What do you see as fixing that problem? That's good. Yes, I think you're right. A lot of folks don't know what HQIM is. That's where we've built out our website now, and we're working on moving forward with those kinds of things. Annie, did you want to share something?
No, I was just saying, if you want to take yourself off mute real quick and just kind of answer some of Lee's questions, you guys should feel free, but like keep adding some stuff in the chat. But, you know, we have a somewhat larger group this morning, so, but feel free to answer those questions. But I think, you know, the only thing I would add, and hi, everyone, I'm Annie Morrison with Rivet Education, the woman that keeps emailing you. But I think, you know, there was a comment made about, you know, some of that impact hasn't been seen yet. And I think when it comes to HQM, especially in the first 2 years, a lot of that impact is seen outside of test results. I think it's what's happening day to day in the classrooms, or some of the really exciting work that, you know, you get to see early on when teachers and students are using high quality instructional materials, which may be a great segue into our next section.
Earl, I agree with you. We've got to work with the leadership as much as with the teachers to make sure they understand how it all works. And that's part of what we'll be talking about in the next session, and part of what we're hoping you guys can help us get in place going forward. Well, this is great conversation. Thank y'all so much for sharing. So let's move forward, if I can get it to go. So now that we've defined it, let's talk a little bit about the impact of what we currently have in our state that we have seen through MDE. Teachers deserve materials that remove the stress of having to cobble together lessons. We've talked about that. HQIM provides teachers with a roadmap of where students need to be by the end of the school year, and the tools and the lesson plans to help them get there, which will increase their self-confidence. Thus, they can meet the needs of the students more effectively and prevent some of that burnout where we're losing teachers at the end of 3 to 5 years. Now, it's not a silver bullet, but we can help get equity for students in place that you don't have when every teacher's using something different. It also allows teachers to really utilize those PLCs to plan collaboratively if everyone's using the same high quality instructional materials, and share best practices. This collaboration around a common set of materials also gives teachers the confidence they need to raise their expectations for what students should know and be able to do, which will ultimately lead to student achievement increase. But what about on the students? What's the impact on the students? One of the biggest impacts that teacher and school leaders highlight about HQIM is that they allow all students to engage in the same books or math problems, regardless of the academic ability or any learning challenge they may have. There are supports built into the materials that support these students so that they can read Hatchet alongside their peers, rather than some other book that's at a lower level. They can work through the math problems with aids, with assistance, and still be able to understand the concepts at a grade level. Another way that HQIM reduces equity barriers in the classroom is that they build students' background knowledge of the world by introducing them to places, cultures, and experiences they may not have been exposed to. For pre-work, we had you review an overview of Elmore's instructional core. And you know, a triangle is one of the strongest figures in mathematics. And this is why this is so strong for us. So let's take a moment to discuss the role HQIM plays in the instructional core. So if you'll just review this graphic and refresh your memory of what you read. So based on what we have discussed thus far, where do you see HQIM having an influence and how? Take a moment to jot a few notes down and then put them into the chat. Highlight how student and teachers, oh, no, sorry. I'm getting ahead. So if you take any of the three away, what's going to happen? You're going to lose the triangle shape, right? So you've got to have the teacher as well as the student. You've got to have content. So you've got to have all three of these. So if you have a fantastic teacher and a group of really motivated students and you don't have any materials, it won't work. If you have a great teacher and strong content, then you can get your students all engaged, right? HQIM sets the instructional task, which is at the center of the instructional core and the true accountability measure of good instruction. Also for pre-work, we had you watch the video of a teacher and her students discussing the text, Things Fall Apart, which is a text in the ELA guidebooks curriculum. As a refresher, for those of you who did not get a chance to watch it previously, we're going to show a 10-minute clip from the video. As you are watching, I want you to make mental notes of the student and teacher actions you are seeing in the video. And if you've not already done so, jot the notes down in the note catcher that was sent to you. Afterwards, we're going to discuss the role the curriculum is playing in the lesson and the instructional core. All right, so now I need to switch screens. Let's see if it's going to let me go there.
Right now, they are trying to gather evidence.
Just one more second and I'll have it for us. All right, so Annie, can you see the video?
For writing, but it took us a while to get there. So, you know, this little excerpt that we had, I sat them down, and it took them a really long time to figure out the nuance, right? It took them a really long time to figure out the conversation behind the conversation and to be able to explain why it was going on. And so, if it takes that long, it just sort of takes that long. You know what I mean? Because I feel like if they're doing the thinking, then they're doing what they need to be doing. And if I have to get them to do their exit ticket for homework, then I will, right? And so the thing about close reading that I find is really, really difficult is not giving them the answers, right? So like just trying to figure out if we can just, as teachers, just like shut up and then just let them do it. They're gonna say some really ridiculous things at first, but after a while, they start to reach the correct answers. You are going to use evidence from the provided text to prove that what we're saying about human nature is true. Okay, just making sure that's clear. All right, jump back in.
like his perception of how he thought people should be was like they should be ruthless and all that. That caused him to think that everybody else who was like powerful as he was the same way. Like, I just saw the problem that he couldn't really like he was every time he got stuck like you know fight. What we're saying is that some other person who really think that's really wrong with it, man. He said, should not think that. I mean, a stereotype like that. We should be like been writing about me with nature, but we just cover this with the church. And this is people need that. And so when he finds out that he couldn't never stop right, he should have been hospitalized. No, who just learned? What did he give in? So did he actually learn? Go back to the we talking about characters. Who we talking about? Do you have a thesis statement? Are we just summarizing the characters of the week? Yes, stay here, turn around and look at that. Who are you talking about? The people. The audience. Who's that? We're the audience. Yeah. So we're learning about this. It's not about what's going on. It's the fact that it's been learning. So this is give me 5 minutes.
Right here, like when I was young, I thought it was a strong man. This is so that you could actually open up and show your response and connect with other people. So that actually put in the box. Like that's exactly what it is. You know how to sound like his life is good. He probably showed affection towards the life, but the fact that he put him in the box, yeah, he really have the answer to anybody because as a man, all of the things that he struggled to do because of the person that he was, he just thought that if I was anything like my father, I wouldn't be able to be as successful. And he just wanted to like get all of that out. So he basically all of his aggression, like that was his with the fighting, like that's where his success came from. So he felt like he had to be strong and show people that he was strong through being so
He's trying to get them to realize that you can still be powerful and you can still be strong, but you can still show emotions. Like you can have feelings for one another and still be strong. Like you don't have that because you share something with somebody like your problems and your relationship problems, something like that, like your emotions and feelings. You don't mean you weak. That means that you still is powerful.
Okay, yes, hang on. I'm sorry, I gotta throw this in there. Yes, that's happening in the story, in this imaginary world that's not so imaginary because it is based on his grandfather, kind of, right? But there's this imaginary story happening in the book that you just described. Wonderful, thank you. Now, the next step is stepping outside of this and saying, how does this lead us to what you guys came up with last week over here? So that's what they need help with because they're still in the book and I need them to step out into the world.
He had us thinking that it's all about being strong, not being weak, you know, and he thought that the things that he did was him being strong. And like us readers, we had to believe that because that's what we thought. Like we all thought that the Bible can't be said at home. You know, it can't
Haley?
Yeah.
We may want to go ahead and pause the video. I think it's starting to buffer a little bit too much on for participants that are just not able to like hear it anymore. So I think for you all that didn't get a chance to watch the video prior to today's session, we encourage you guys to take a look at this lesson after our call today, because we're going to revisit this video before in next week's session as well. So yeah, so I apologize, guys, that it wasn't playing very well for you all. But yeah, why don't we go ahead, for those of you that did have a chance to watch it, we can go ahead and kind of have a conversation about what you saw.
So what role did you see the curriculum playing in the lesson, in the instructional core here?
And for context, everyone, this is an ELA guidebooks lesson that they're using here. This is a school in New Orleans. But I think irregardless, I think you could replace the curriculum with any given curriculum here. Like, the idea behind this is that they are using, obviously, When Things Fall Apart, which is a rigorous grade level text. So I think I would, just like infer that that's what's being used, and kind of reflect more on how that particular text, like a grade level rigorous text, and the fact that all kids are engaging in that same text, like, how do you see that playing out, and that connection to the instructional core?
Yeah, I think you're all trending in the same way here with this idea that this is a high level text. The kids are collaborating together and really deeply thinking about the text, and the teacher isn't feeding them the answers at all. In fact, one point, I'm sure you guys saw where she pointed back to the thesis statement and said, look, this is what you're supposed to be doing. So I thought she is a great facilitator in this. Yes, weren't some of those real world connections fabulous? I mean, I don't know if you could script something better than what we heard, the way they tied it to their personal life and things that they knew. So how does this differ from the classrooms you observe in the schools you work in?
And again, y'all should feel free, if you want to take yourselves off mute and kind of just like, engage in the chat here, feel free to do that as well, or just continue to put your comments in the chat.
And Nicole, you're absolutely right when you say teachers like to be the sage on the stage. But I also see it from Whitney's point here, where she says some teachers need more support to be that true facilitator. If you've never seen that happen, or you've never been in a classroom where that was used, it's very hard to just step up and suddenly do that without some practice. And time is always an issue, isn't it? Time is always an issue. We never have enough time to do everything we want. We never have enough time for the kids to sink deeply into their work. And Earl brings up an interesting point. I remember several teachers that I have coached that they took a week or so at the beginning of the year and taught their kids how to do school in their room, taught the kids how to have these deep conversations and what the moves to make. And while it took some time at the beginning, it paid in spades as you went forward because they could see all of that. And they didn't have to keep going back to remember your roles or any of those kinds of things. Yes, Annie, you're absolutely right. All the students seem to be participating, at least with their partners, and then with the responses with the class, with the snapping. I think that was greatly done. You're right, Tanette. We want to, most teachers are helpers by nature, right? We want to fix it. We want to fix that problem. And you've got to let the kids struggle. I thought she did a great job with that when she kept pointing those students back to the thesis statement that they'd come up with and made them come up with it on their own and wouldn't give them the answer. So let's talk, and I appreciate all of your responses here. So let's move on to how this is happening in Mississippi. How we're dealing with HQIM in Mississippi. So I want to go back again. Remember, we're creating a world-class education system, giving students the knowledge and the skills to be successful in college, the workforce, and to flourish as parents and citizens. We think HQIM can help us to get there. So how does it? How are we supporting the use of HQIM? HQIM provides every student in Mississippi the opportunity to build their knowledge of the world by reading meaningful, complex texts, expressing their ideas effectively through writing and speaking, and solving complex math problems. In order to assure that Mississippi educators have what they need to advocate for HQIM, here's some of the things we're doing. We are putting some supports in place to help all districts adopt high quality instructional materials. We're going to also support districts with resources and incentives necessary to engage in professional learning that lead to skillful implementation of HQIM. And with your help, we're going to create a pool of credentialed content leaders who serve as school-based instructional and content experts. So let me give you a brief history of what we've done so far here in Mississippi. We started in 2017 when we joined a network of states through the Council of Chief State School Officers. And this network was providing us with best practices on how to support schools and districts in the selection of high quality instructional materials and the opportunity to troubleshoot some of the common challenges and solutions. We also in that year created our definition of HQIM and aligned professional learning that we've used earlier today. Then in 2018, we partnered with EdReports and more importantly, with Mississippi educators to review math instructional materials after we had created a Mississippi standards aligned rubric. And believe me, the majority of the work was around creating those rubrics. And we have Dr. Davis to thank for getting those in place. In 2019, we did release the math textbook adoption list, and every resource on there is considered high quality instructional materials. Then in 2020, we launched our Instructional Materials Matters website, and we began the same process that we had done for math with ELA. This year, we have released our ELA textbook adoption list, and it is also available on the Mississippi Instructional Matters website. And again, everything listed in there is considered high quality. So you know that math and ELA in Mississippi has been vetted by our teachers, by our administrators using our rubrics that we created. So as a result of these efforts, we've seen a significant increase in the number of students with access to high quality math instructional materials, especially students of color and from low income families. So here's the current usage rates across all schools as of this spring. And as you can see, there is still some work that needs to be done, especially at the high school level. So what's next? What are we going to do next? Well, we want to ensure that all students have access to high quality instructional materials. So as we move through the adoption cycles, we'll continue to review and identify high quality instructional materials for those content areas. We're going to train teachers and administrators on how to select high quality materials, explain the rubrics to them, and partner with certified professional learning providers like you. Additionally, we are currently working with our institutes of higher education, and they are adding in high quality instructional materials into teacher and principal preparation programs, using those rubrics, teaching them how to select high quality instructional materials. So, but we can't do this alone. We need support from the local organizations and the providers. And here's how you can help us. Encourage your district partners to use ESSER funds to invest in high quality instructional materials and for professional learning. Continue to join us through these webinar series to learn more about our statewide efforts to provide school leaders and teachers with professional learning aligned to high quality instructional materials. And you'll learn about the application process for the Professional Learning Partner Guide. At the end of all of this, you will be able to apply to become a certified provider in the Mississippi Professional Learning Partner Guide. So what are our next steps? Well, moving forward, we have 2 more webinars upcoming. The next one is next Tuesday, September 14th. And that webinar will focus on defining high quality professional learning in Mississippi and give you a sneak preview of the Mississippi Professional Learning Guide. The link for the registration, Annie's going to put that in the chat for us. Annie, if you'll take care of that, please, that'd be great. And then please also know that that 3rd session, obviously when we moved the first one, everything shifted down one. So now the 3rd session, where Rivet will really take you through how you become a certified provider, is dated for September 21st. And all of these are from 10 to 11 or 11:30. Please go ahead and register for this session as well, if you would. So, do we have any questions at this time? Well, thank you very much for attending. We appreciate your interest. I'm happy to say I can give you back 10 minutes of your day. Hope you can enjoy that time. Get a cup of coffee or something. If you do have questions, here's my email. Feel free to reach out to me. You can call me at the department. We're happy to help you, and we appreciate you being part of this team now. Have a great day. Thank you very much.